Hello, welcome to the FPL News channel. We're here to discuss team and injury news ahead of Game Week 13. This is an early look at a lot of yellow flags that have been put on over the international break. This is, of course, recorded ahead of any pre-match press conference, so we will have further information coming later in the week, but there's a lot to discuss, so I said I'd have a look at some of the injuries and whether or not FPL players need to be concerned over who they own heading into Game Week 13. We're going to start with Erling Haaland. Picked up an ankle injury playing for Norway last week in a friendly. If anyone's wondering why he came on in a friendly, the Norway manager said it was actually the player's choice, that he wanted to, get rhythm, as Pep would say, ahead of their match against Scotland on Sunday, which he then missed due to this injury. Norway had no chance of qualifying for the Euros even if they beat Scotland. So that probably plays into Haaland not playing. Solbakken, who's the Norway manager, was asked on Saturday if Haaland would have played if it had been like a final, or we'll say a match that Norway needed to win, and he kind of said, I don't know, basically. But yeah, there's a good chance he could have played, I would say, if Norway really needed him to, or at least he probably would have stayed with the squad and, given it every chance, gone on the bench or whatever, if Norway could still have qualified, but they weren't able to get through, even like it was for a playoff spot they would have been looking for, but that hope was extinguished pre-match, so that'll probably have played into Haaland leaving the Norway camp. So there's some quotes from the Norway team doctor as well. I have tweeted them out. So he basically said that Haaland suffered the same problem at Bournemouth in Game Week 11. I think anyone who plays FPL will remember Game Week 11 not so fondly. Haaland obviously came off at half-time against Bournemouth, same ankle issue. He started 3 days later in the Champions League in a game that one would think he probably didn't really need to play particularly, except, obviously Pep doesn't exactly work like that or whatever, and they still wanted to just get 3 points and be qualified, which they've done now. They're already through. They've won 4 games out of 4, which is also important to note for Haaland, I think. But so he's basically suffered the same problem, played 3 days later, Game Week 11 and the midweek after Game Week 11. Fabrizio Romano has also tweeted about it, saying that he expects, or that the information is that Haaland will be fine for Liverpool. I know he usually has inside info. I'm not sure if this is one of those times or he's just kind of going off what the Norway manager said in his pre-match press conference, which was basically along the lines of that it's not a serious injury. I'll link to those quotes in the description if you want to read them. And but yeah, it's another decent sign for Haaland that he, there's a good chance he'll be available this weekend. Guardiola's press conference will be on Friday. I know he doesn't often give anything away, but he is going to get asked probably 2 or 3 questions about Haaland this time because there's a definite injury and that kind of thing. So maybe we'll get something from him. Man City could put out training pictures. There's a possibility of training footage as well, and obviously if there is, and whether he's in it or not will make a difference. So there's a lot to keep on top of on Friday. If you follow me on Twitter at 1FPL News, I will be covering that. I think the biggest thing for this weekend, Game Week 13 with Haaland, is that City have that early kickoff, 12:30 against Liverpool. First game after the deadline. So there is a possibility of team leaks. Definite strong possibility that you get some indication of whether he's actually playing or not. So if you can get online before the deadline. The deadline is 11 a.m. GMT Saturday morning. So yeah, if you own Haaland like me, and you plan on captaining him like me, could be wise to try and get online maybe a half an hour before the deadline, just to see if there's any indication on whether he is playing or not. From what we have right now, I would expect him to be fine. And yeah, I'll be captaining him unless we get anything new, and then waiting as close to the deadline as possible for any information. And I suppose make sure you have your vice captain set to whoever you think is the best choice in your squad in case he doesn't play. And yeah, if it comes to pass that he doesn't play, I don't think I'd be selling him. I mean, if it was a week later and, Darwin Núñez is really tempting from game week 14, I could kind of see maybe an argument for it or whatever. But the fixtures in game week 13, I don't think massively lend themselves to selling him. Plus, if he did miss one game, it sounds like that's all he would miss right now. I don't think he will miss the game at all, but yeah, it doesn't sound like it's going to be anything long term or whatever. Obviously, if we found out he was out for like 4 weeks, that would be different. But yeah, I just don't think I'd be selling him from what we have now, even if he was to miss one game. Obviously, from game week 14 to game week 16 is one calendar week, so there'll be 3 deadlines in a week. 3 fixtures for each team in the week. So, even if he was to miss one game, but he was fit for those games, I think you'd still want him. I think he's probably going to be the most popular captain in 14. Seems like the best option to me right now. Obviously, Salah has a good fixture as well. At home to Fulham, but Man City play Spurs at home, and obviously the Spurs defence is a bit ravaged at the moment. Romero's still going to be out for that game. So yeah, I think Haaland he'll be as usual one of the top captain picks and possibly the most popular captain pick for 14. So yeah, I'd definitely be holding fire even if he was to miss one game. And yeah, we'll get more information during the week, and the early kickoff will help as well. So that's the state of play with Haaland on Tuesday morning. Jared Bowen has also been yellow flagged with a knee injury, having had to leave the England camp over the weekend. Gareth Southgate said that he felt the issue pre the Malta game on Friday and again in training on Sunday. And yeah, he said that they couldn't make an accurate decision before the game, and they felt it better to leave him in England than have him travel for the North Macedonia game. I suppose every international break injury has to be taken on its merits. I don't think this is a case of, not a real injury, because obviously the Euros are coming up next year. Bowen presumably wants to get in the England squad, so I'd imagine if he could have stayed around and got some minutes if he was fit to play, that he would have done that. So yeah, I don't think there's any shenanigans going on. Most of the reports suggest that he's going to face a late fitness test for the Burnley game. And before he got injured, I think he would have been an extremely popular captain choice. I would probably have him third after Haaland and Salah for captain in game week 13, but I could definitely see why people would go there ahead of either of those two. Away to Burnley is obviously a brilliant fixture. But yeah, Moyes tends not to give away a whole pile. He will definitely be asked about it. I guess if he kind of says basically what the reports are saying, that there's going to be a late fitness test, I'd probably be hesitant. I don't own Bowen, but if I had Bowen, I mean, I would be hesitant to captain him in that case. Obviously, there could be some further news on Saturday morning, but their game is until 3 o'clock. They do travel to Burnley, so maybe there will be some information Friday night on a travelling squad or Saturday morning. So again, it's one worth keeping an eye on up to the deadline. And yeah, unless he's ruled out for weeks, I wouldn't be. If I own Bowen, I wouldn't be selling him either. Because once he's fit, he's a 90-minute man, and the fixture crunch is about to happen. So he's obviously a really good pick. With so many games coming up once he's fit. So we'll have to see what Moyes says. Most likely he'll be on Friday morning. And keep an eye on, West Ham reporters that are kind of in the know, as they say, or whatever, that have some inside track. There'll definitely be more to hear about Bowen, and I think it's a case if you own him, hold on to him unless he's ruled out for a few weeks. But he's obviously a brilliant pick at the moment, and by the sounds of it, it's a minor injury, so there's every chance he just plays against Burnley anyway. The captaincy I would be a little bit hesitant with, but should get more during the week. If he does play, it looks very likely that he's going to be playing up front now, as he did in Game Week 12. Antonio has suffered an injury on Jamaica duty. It was first being reported as a hamstring, but it turns out it's a knee injury for Antonio as well, knee ligaments. But he is expected to be out for weeks at a minimum. So that suggests that Bowen will continue as the centre forward. I think we'll probably have to see over the next few games. There is data on Bowen playing up front, and it's definitely not bad. I think it'll be interesting to see how he gets on for a run of games in the Premier League up there. Sometimes when they move wingers to play up front, it can dent their appeal a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen with him, but it'll definitely be interesting to see what his numbers are like over a sustained period. Again, I think even if he misses Burnley, by the sounds of it right now, he'll probably be back by Game Week 14. Bowen, that is. So will definitely be interesting to see what kind of numbers he puts up front, and they have a lovely run of fixtures as well. So that is Bowen, and Antonio is expected to be out for a while. Obviously, he's not well owned, but it does make a difference in terms of who plays where for West Ham. Could also be good for Souček. He's 4.9 million FPL. I think most people, including myself, would be buying Palmer before they buy Souček. But with Antonio likely out and Bowen likely playing up front, could see Souček continuing that kind of, playing behind the striker basically and getting into the box, which is really where you want him if he's going to be an FPL pick. And it just should be good for his expected minutes as well, Souček. So at 4.9, he's definitely one to consider. Again, I'd rank him behind Palmer as a pick. But Souček scored 2 goals for Czech Republic over the break. Put up 0.45 XG against Forest. Did score and also hit the crossbar. He did sustain a head injury on Czech Republic duty, but that was in their first game and he played the second game. And, he looks like he's got a war wound or whatever, but there's a chance he could be subject to the Premier League protocols for concussion, but the fact that he played for the Czech Republic after he got the injury seemed like he'll probably be fine and be able to play. I feel like a 1 week punt if Souček is fit. I think away to Burnley, delightful fixture to be fair. He's definitely one to keep an eye on for West Ham. Gabriel Jesus has been pictured in training for Brazil ahead of their game against Argentina. That's played tomorrow morning, 12:30 on Wednesday morning, GMT. So there's a possibility that he could either start or he will almost definitely be on the bench and could earn some minutes for Brazil, which will take his yellow flag away. Otherwise for Arsenal, Ben White is a doubt. He obviously missed game week 12 with a minor issue. I would expect him to be fine. He's had the international break to recover, and from what Arteta said about the injury, it was almost like the sports science team were kind of like, this guy shouldn't play, as opposed to Ben White actually saying anything about being injured or flagging a problem, that kind of thing. So it sounds like the decision was, I don't know, players don't get to decide these things anyway, but like, it doesn't sound like he was reporting an injury. It sounded like they were, there was a real life flag in the Arsenal sports science team somewhere, and they said, no, this guy needs a break. If he's trained over the international break, he'll be fine, and he's obviously first choice, even despite the fact that Arteta's clearly got great options in Tomiyasu and Zinchenko, and he has shown a willingness this season to rotate that back four. Gabriel has obviously missed out recently, and he's given Saliba a rest in another competition, and just because of that, I would say White's not an absolute definite to come back, even if he's 95% fit. But he's a good long-term pick. So unless there's anything new on him, I would expect him to be available. Martin Odegaard, on the other hand, has missed 3 games now. I'd be surprised if many people still own him in FPL that are not zombie teams. The Norway manager Solbakken said that he expects Odegaard will be available for Arsenal at Brentford in game week 13. They obviously had contact over the international break. Odegaard did not travel to play for Norway. He had a hip injury and then he sustained a concussion in training before Newcastle in game week 11. So that would have ruled him out of that game. It's unclear as to which issue meant that he wasn't back for the Burnley game. We got nothing from Arteta. He just kept saying that Odegaard was racing against time to be available. That could mean that he was on the clock against the concussion protocol, or it could mean that it was the hip injury and he was trying to get fit from that. So we'll have to see what he says on Friday, and also, check the training pictures and footage and all that kind of thing to see if Odegaard will be available. Solbakken also said that the player has been without training for about 3 weeks. So match fitness is going to be an issue one way or the other. So I wouldn't expect Odegaard to be playing 90 minutes even if he does come back. So if anyone's still holding him in FPL, I'd be pretty happy to get shot of him at this stage. Mitoma has been orange flagged, which is obviously a bit of an upgrade on the old yellow flag that most of the other players have. And according to Athletic correspondent Andy Naylor, he's likely going to be out for the weekend for the game at Nottingham Forest. We'll hear off De Zerbi most likely on Friday, and I should get some further indication of Mitoma's status, but Naylor is usually solid with his info, so if you own Mitoma, I would definitely be looking at exit routes right now. I guess if you have the money and Bowen is fit, I think he's the standout pick. Obviously, we've just spoken about him and his doubts over Bowen's playing time. So I think it'll probably be more popular to just bring in Bumo in. It's a week early. Obviously, Brentford play Arsenal at home this week before a lovely fixture on from 14. And Bumo is going to be incredibly popular transfer ahead of game week 14, and I can see why you would just move from Mitoma to Mbeumo now. Obviously depends on who you own. I think Eberechi Eze could be a really decent pick if you buy him this week. If you could go Mitoma to Eze and you were able to get Mbeumo in the following week, depends on how many midfielders you're playing and who you have already. But I think that would be a really interesting shout. I don't own Mitoma, so not a consideration for me. But yeah, generally I think probably Mbeumo is going to be the most popular replacement. I do own a Dingra, so for the few of you who are the same, think Mitoma being out just boosts his X minutes because Dingra can play on either side, and Brighton are obviously struggling with a lot of different injuries at the moment. So yeah, Dingra already look good for minutes, but probably even stronger now if Mitoma is out. And yeah, the other players that are out for Brighton is Stupinan. Hard to see him coming back in game week 13. There's been nothing on him over the international break, but yeah, unfortunately he suffered that recurrence of his injury in the Europa League, so you're unlikely to see him in game week 13. And Lewis Dunk is a doubt as well, so it'll be interesting to see what De Zerbi has to say on those. Evan Ferguson is the other player that a couple might have. People might have punted on him for game week 12. Really nice fixture. I guess him missing out completely was better than him coming on for a minute. Yeah, I was surprised he played for Ireland. Really surprised. Ireland had no chance of qualifying for the Euros. There was really no need for him to play against Haaland. I suppose, no chance might be wrong. There was like an extremely minuscule chance of a playoff. But yeah, I felt it was surprising, and a lot of the reports after the Ireland game were based on Ferguson having strapping around his hamstring and ice packs or whatever, and that was a new injury that he picked up. De Zerbi actually said, and I tweeted the quotes out, that it was back and hamstring were Ferguson's issues, and that was why he missed out in game week 12. So he actually went to the Ireland camp with those problems. So I'd say they were known, and hence him immediately having the hamstring, tended to once he came off for Ireland after about 56 minutes or whatever it was. So to the best of my knowledge, it's not a new injury that was sustained while he played for Ireland against Holland. He already had it in some shape or fashion, and may or may not have aggravated it. Stephen Kenny said yesterday on Monday that Ferguson looks to be okay. Ireland have an international friendly again. Like, I think it'd just be strange if they played him at this point. Like, it's an international friendly. He's a young player who's had his injury struggles already. I just don't really see why there would be any risk taken, to be honest. And yeah, there was mention after the Holland game that Brighton mightn't be too happy with Ireland because of this supposedly new hamstring injury, but Brighton already knew about it. I think they might not be too happy with Ireland if they played Ferguson in a friendly, when he's obviously carrying some sort of issue, the severity of which we do not know, and may or may not know anyway. In relation to FPL, I mean, if you own João Pedro, who's obviously been an incredibly frustrating player to own, yeah, I suppose it's worth keeping an eye on the Ferguson situation because Welbeck's already out, and trying to predict João Pedro starts now is a lottery. But if another forward is gone, his X minutes obviously get boosted. Though he's not someone that I would be transferring in a month of Sundays at the moment. But yeah, if you own and you're looking to play him in what should be a decent fixture away, Forest are quite good at home, and Brighton clearly are struggling at the moment. But yeah, if you happen to have Pedro and you want to start him, worth keeping an eye on the Ferguson stuff. De Zerbi should be asked about him as well in his press conference, and like all the other teams, there could be pictures and footage and news of travelling squads and all the rest of it. Kind of club dependent, obviously, and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's an interesting one. So that's the sort of situation at Brighton pre-press conference. Destiny Udogie did not go away with Italy over the international break. There are some quotes from his agent saying that it was basically a Tottenham Hotspur decision, that Udogie really, really wanted to join up with Italy as they, tried to qualify for the Euros, and that Spurs basically put a stop to it. The reports otherwise suggest that it's a precautionary measure rather than a full-on injury as such. I think there's a dearth of options to play in defence for FPL in Gameweek 13. The fixtures are not that promising for a lot of teams in defensive terms. I'm a Udogie owner too. I expect he'll be fine. And did not give much away now the last time that Udogie was injured, and it's thought to be the same sort of issue, even though he obviously came back to play against Chelsea and then got sent off. But it's thought to be still the same sort of muscle issue that ruled him out a couple of game weeks ago. And at the time, Postecoglou just basically said it was 50-50 and wasn't sure if he'd make it or not. So hopefully on Friday we will get something more definitive. Again, I think training pictures and footage would be helpful in terms of seeing if Udogie is training. So, if he's training, happy days, should play. Spurs don't play till the Sunday, and they're playing at home, so I wouldn't expect anything in terms of a leak or anything like that for Spurs whatsoever in Game Week 13. But hopefully between the Postecoglou press conference, which will be on Friday, and maybe some images or footage from training, that we'll be able to get a good handle pre-deadline on whether or not Udogie is going to be fit. I suppose the other thing to possibly consider is that Spurs are struggling in defence, just like FPL defences might be struggling this week. They are, short of options in defence at the moment. So I think if there's any chance he can play, he will play. I don't think they'll take a risk either. If it is still up in the air, I don't think they would risk his fitness for one game or anything like that. But the fact that they've had him now for 2 weeks and that it was thought to be precautionary, I think probably positive signs for his minutes in Game Week 13. So we finish with Newcastle, who have an absolute ton of flags at the moment. So there's differing reports going around on Sven Botman. The one from the Telegraph by Luke Edwards, whose tweet I've quoted, I think maybe something happened with the headline, or where they're trying to get clicks, and there was more so suggesting that surgery was a definite or something, or maybe that's just the way it got picked up. But as you can see, the guy who wrote the actual article tweeted right underneath saying he might not need surgery. So I don't think it was being reported as a definite or anything like that. It's clearly an option. At the time of that report, Edwards is right in saying that it's been 2 months since Botman played, and just from listening to Howe's press conferences and the time he was asked about what's happening with him, he seemed really, really, unclear on what might happen, and that he did admit that surgery was a definite option. He was pushed on it to say that, but he did end up admitting that. So, like, hopefully the guy does not need knee surgery and he's playing really soon. I would be surprised if he's back anytime soon. I really would. Like, it is a long way to go from 2 months out to, playing these really, really intense games with a problem that they're still seemingly pretty iffy on whether it actually needs intervention or not. And the other thing to consider is Newcastle's fixtures. So after game week 13, they obviously have Chelsea at home this weekend. They go to PSG in the Champions League. Now, the result of that could tell a lot in terms of whether or not their final Champions League match will have any bearing on whether they can qualify for the next round or get into the Europa League or not. But just the glut of games that they have and the glut of games that are on the Premier League. So that's the midweek before 14, and then they've got 3 Premier League games in a week. Then they've got the Champions League immediately after that. They play Premier League again. Then they've got an EFL Cup quarter final. And then it's into the really, really hectic schedule of games from the 23rd of December for Newcastle. That'll be game week 18, which obviously starts on the Thursday of that week. Crystal Palace play Brighton. I've done another video on kind of explaining how the deadlines will work over Christmas in terms of press conferences and information and how you can best plan your squad. I'll leave a link to that below as well. But yeah, even from me going through the fixtures there, like, Newcastle have so many games that, like, I think if you own Lascelles, considering his price, you probably got him at 4 million, so he's essentially cost you nothing. I think he's still going to get lots and lots of game time between now and, we'll say, New Year's Day or the day after New Year's Day, which is a hell of a lot of game weeks. Yeah, maybe like this particular week I might not advise buying Lascelles because they have Chelsea at home anyway. So, like, unless you've got 2 free transfers and you're going to burn one, you really need to move around your bench. I don't think there's any need to be buying him this week, but definitely if I held him, I'd be fairly confident he's going to start a good few of those games. Like, even if Botman does come back, he's just not playing every 3 days. No chance. Absolutely no chance. So we'll see what Eddie says this week and whether he's pressed on giving anything more away. And yeah, if you own Lascelles, I think, like, if we get footage or images of Botman back in full training, maybe you can start going a bit iffier on his X minutes, but even then you have to consider how many fixtures Newcastle have and how they will prioritise those games. That's hard to know right now. Obviously, the PSG game is going to be a huge priority for them right now, and after that, that will tell whether or not the AC Milan game will be pivotal for them or not. But yeah, I think Lascelles is a perfectly good player to own if you own him, and I would be keeping tabs on it. And if you need, I know Newcastle have lovely fixtures of 17 and 18, 18 being the blank game week, and that is the time when people will want Lascelles to be available. You couldn't say for definite right now, but, like, he will get at least some minutes around then. And yeah, it'd be surprising if Botman is really back anytime soon. It could happen, possibility, but yeah, the glut of games means that Lascelles will be decent for expected minutes at the very least. So otherwise, Newcastle, also Luke Edwards reported that Wilson could be out for about 6 weeks. That was a week ago nearly now. So yeah, he's looking at maybe a month out, 5 weeks out. There is talk that Isak could return in game week 13. He's still orange flagged on the website on OFPL. Again, I'd say, like, if they're they could be taking a chance, Newcastle, if they play Isak this weekend. Obviously, their squad is getting a little bit threadbare, so maybe they will be more likely to take a risk. Again, like if Wilson is definitely out, and like that sounds legit, and we should find out more about that this week. Isak is obviously going to be a really appealing option, especially again 17, 18. If you know Wilson is out and Isak is fit. So yeah, Isak is one I would monitor. I definitely would not invest at the moment. See if he plays this weekend, how many minutes he gets, see what happens in the PSG game, and then go from there. Kieran Trippier pulled out of the England squad for personal reasons, so he should be fine for game week 13. The report suggests that Almiron will be fit for 13, which is pretty good for Newcastle considering, again, how many other injuries they have. And Fabian Schär missed Switzerland's first game, but he was back on the bench their second game. That was on Saturday. So again, you'd expect him to be fine. Lewis Hall is ineligible to face his parent club this weekend, so those who punted on Tino Livramento, you would expect him to start. Position-wise, personally, I think he'll start at left back. Looking at it right now, if you own him, you definitely want him to start right back. But I think, then again, if you own Trippier, you want him to start at right back too. It's just Trippier is so like important to that Newcastle attack, and you're obviously going to take a bit of that away if you play him at left back. And yeah, he's already put Livramento at left back in certain minutes in recent games. So I think it's probably likely that it'll be left back for Livramento, right back for Trippier, looking at it right now. And yeah, other than that, they've got the long-term absentees. Harvey Barnes is one that might return in the next couple of weeks. So I suppose if you're a Gordon owner, you'll be looking at that. But I mean, yeah, again, he'll have been out for like 3 months, so match fitness and sharpness and all that kind of thing will be coming into play. And again, those glut of games that we talked about for Botman. So even when Barnes does come back, I'd say, it'll be from the bench at the offset and working from there. That's the end of this video. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got any questions, you can comment below or find me on Twitter at 1FPLNews. And yeah, I'll answer any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching and catch you on the next one.